Okay, we're going to start the meeting of the Transportation Planning Policy Committee, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Everyone here.
Nice, America.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Jose Garola.
Here.
Steve Smith.
I'm here.
Nick Lasinovich. Ray Kaleo.
Here.
Stephen McFarland. Mike Mallard.
Here.
Gilbert Alvarado. Cryer.
Here.
Steve Smith. Bill Smith. Gilberto Reyna.
I'm here.
David Couch. Zach Stricker.
I'm here.
Kersey.
Here.
May Alcala. Michael Navarro.
Here.
Cindy Carter. I am here. Thank you.
All good? Okay, we have a quorum. Public comments. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the council on any matter not on this agenda but under the jurisdiction of the council. Council members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. They may ask a question for clarification, make a referral to staff for factual information, or request staff to report back to council at a later meeting. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record prior to making a presentation. Are there any public on the phone? I see no public here. Any correspondence in public? No? Okay, thank you. Consent agenda. Opportunity for public comment. All items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by Kern COG staff and will be approved by one motion if no member of the council or public wishes to comment or ask questions of comment or discussion desired by anyone. The item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered in the listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the council concerning the item before action is taken. Does anyone want to remove a consent agenda item? None. Can I have a motion? Crump, make a motion to approve. Motion by Crump.
I'll second it. This is Reyna.
Second by Reyna. Roll call vote.
Crump.
Aye.
D. Smith.
Yes.
Grace Vallejo.
Aye.
Mike Mallard.
Yes.
Russell Cryer.
Yes.
Gilberto Reyna.
Yes.
Rex Scrivener,
Aye.
Kersey,
Yes.
McCullough,
Yes.
and Navarro. I'm sorry, Carr.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. Item 5, public hearing on that transit needs in Kern County. Mr. Snoddy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Kern Council of Governments annually holds a public hearing to identify any unmet transit needs and those that are reasonable to meet. And this is the last of 10 public hearings held this year throughout the county. The Social Services Transportation Advisory Committee has reviewed input from these requirements. Prior to making any allocation from the Transportation Development Act, TDA funds, to uses other than public transit or pedestrian bikeway facilities, Kern COG is legally required under California Public Utilities Code Section 99401.5 to determine whether unmet transit needs have been identified within its jurisdiction. Through newspaper advertisements, members of the public were requested to provide their input. Public input was also obtained through public hearings held in the cities, rural communities of Kern, Golden Park Transit District, and the city of Delano. Kern COG Social Services Transportation Advisory Committee, or SSTAC, reviewed the results of these public hearings. Kern Transit held its public hearing on July 28, 2020. The Kern County Board of Supervisors found that there are no unmet transit needs that are reasonable to meet. The cities of Arvin, California City, McFarland, Ridgecrest, Shafter, Taft, Tehachapi, and Wasco held up these public hearings between February and August 2020. None of these cities reported unmet transit needs that were reasonable to meet. At its October 2nd, 2020 meeting, the Social Services Transportation Advisory Committee, SSTAC, reviewed a countywide analysis of unmet transit needs provided by Kern COG staff, and the members of the SSTAC determined that there are no unmet transit needs that are reasonable to meet within Kern County. I have looked at all of my emails since we advertised for this meeting, and I've also been into the office several times to record all of my telephone messages, and I have received no unmet transit needs that are reasonable to me or any response to our unmet transit needs. Tonight is the public hearing for 2021 unmet transit needs assessment and determination, at which time the Kern COG board should decide the resolution one of the following. There are no unmet transit needs, or there are no unmet transit needs that are reasonable to meet, or there are unmet transit needs, including those are reasonable to meet. We recommend that you open up public hearing, receive comments, and close the public hearing. At this time, if we do receive a public comment or comment from anyone, we will record it, and before we pass the resolution, we will take that, forward that unmet transit needs to the proper jurisdiction for their analysis. With that, I advise you to open the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Snoddy. Public hearing is open. Comments on unmet transit needs. Seeing none, hearing none, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion to find that there are no unmet transit needs that are reasonable to meet in Kern County.
So moved. Grace Vallejo.
Second, Mike Mauer.
Roll call vote, please. Aye.
Lee Smith, Williams,
I'm hearing nothing but a lot of static.
Needs to mute. Everybody mute. they're not speaking. Static. Let's try.
Greg Vallejo,
Yes.
Howard, Mike Mauer,
Yes. Yes.
Scout,
Yes.
Zach
Hey,
Freeman,
I didn't get, okay, yes, thank you.
Kersey,
Yes.
McCallum,
Yes.
and Tara. Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Caltrans report.
Good evening, Chair. Thank you. This is Michael Navarro. Apologizing, getting a lot of background noise. Before I go in the report, just some opening remarks. I just want to give you a reminder that the California Transportation Plan is wrapping up its 60-day review. The last day to provide comments will be October 22nd. If you wish to comment, we encourage you to do so. Hopefully by next month, we're anticipating a call for project for our sustainable transportation planning grants. Hopefully by next month. So what we'll be doing is once we get a hard, fast date, we'll be starting to look into holding some virtual events to reach out to engage your respective agencies. So we'll be reaching out accordingly. After projects, Cass Creek Bridge replacement, which is on State Route 58 east of Tehachapi. The work scheduled for October includes pouring concrete barriers, grade and treatment pad, install tubular rail, grind the bridge deck, install guardrail, and start prepping for the median work. This schedule, anticipated completion date is in end of November of this year. State Route 58 closure rehab project, it's a 3R project at Bakersfield from State Route 5899, separation to Cottonwood Road. In the westbound direction, there'll be some rebar replacement and CRCP work. The 2 lanes will be open for traffic, however, we expect nighttime closures to occur. Same work going on in the eastbound direction, and same story there, 2 lanes will be open to traffic, however, we expect nighttime closures along this stretch. I anticipate completion date for this project will be March of 2021. Bell Terrace overcrossing is the State Route 58 between Bell Terrace and Brundage. The auxiliary lane and bridge replace the bridge. Currently scheduled for completion is end of February of 2021. The Bakersfield Freeway Connector project was modifying the 5899 interchange. Work is progressing this project, and most of the work continues to be structure work. Completion date is for December of 2021. And the State Route 99 2R Fast Freight Corridor project, I-5 to US 99. Stage 8 work is in progress from the I-5 overcrossing to just north of David Copus on-ramp. Traffic is split into lane 1 and 3 while work is being completed behind K-Rail. This project is about 60% complete, and we anticipate being complete in summer of 2021. The Bakersfield 99 rehab between Palm Avenue overcrossing and Beardsley Canal Bridge. Project is ongoing. Northbound traffic is shifted to the outside lanes, and work is on lowering the freeway under Minkler Spur overhead and Airport Drive overcrossing. Estimated completion date for this project is August of 2021. The State Route 223 Derby Signal project. First part is look on the east side of town. This project is being ready for advertisement. We're waiting for federal approval for the HCHIP funding. Expect the project to advertise end of October. Open bids in December with project approval for construction February of 2021. Wasco CAP-M project. Striping operations underway for this project. This will include the crosswalk at Poplar. And as I indicated last month, we expect the RFB to be installed to probably end of November, with this project wrapping up by the end of this calendar year. Lastly, the Lost Hills Rehab project. This is on I-5. We're rehabbing about 5 miles of pavement along I-5, south of Twisselman to King County line. So this project, we're getting ready to have a construction kickoff meeting, and it was recently awarded to Papich Construction. The last one thing I wanted to bring up in the city of Bakersfield is I know there's been some concerns expressed about State Route 119, the 23rd and 24th Street intersection. I know our signal and traffic operation folks have continued to coordinate with the city of Bakersfield staff, and I think they recently had some turnover where an individual retired. But we've engaged with a new person, and they've made some modifications to timing out there in the past couple of weeks that they hope to improve the efficiencies. So any feedback on that as you drive that area within the city of Bakersfield, feel free to share. But they did adjust some of the signal timing and work with the coordination, so hopefully you'll start to see that situation improve as we go forward. With that completes my report for District 6, and I'll go ahead and hand it over to Danae for District 9, if that pleases the chair.
Thank you. Any questions from members for Caltrans?
This is Reina. I have something to bring up to David. Oh, Michael, excuse me. Michael, as a project in Wasco was taking place, the Caltrans put on some barricades to direct traffic, and these barricades resulted in some confusion to our drivers or anybody that was passing through that area, in which at the underpass, it's one lane, and frequently two cars found themselves next to each other, where there should be only one lane. Two cars were trying to get through. So just something for the future that we need to be careful about that, and that we direct traffic in a better way. This occurred. I did not see it myself, but it was brought up to my attention. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention as well. That's it. Thank you,
Councilman. Thank you, Councilman Reina. You said it in Wasco. You said in the undercrossing. What location was this at?
The Highway 46 at F Street. That's just before you go to the underpass, and it just made it difficult. Drivers were finding themselves fighting for position because of the way the traffic was directed.
Thank you for that, Councilman. I'll reach out to the RE on the job and express your concerns. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I have one. This is Chairman Smith. We have a bike path project in the city of Bakersfield, and we found it to be categorically exempt. It's CMAQ funded, and Caltrans was still requiring environmental work, and so I would request that categorically exempt means categorically exempt, and we not waste time and money on environmental stuff like Caltrans. Could you expand on that, perhaps, Mr.
So I think I lost you in the first part. The project is, what was the project you said, sir?
Michael, this is Aaron. It's the Stockdale Ranch bike path. It's going over existing crossings. Clearly a categorically excluded project under NEPA. Yet local assistance is asking for several studies. This is the issue that I talked to you about, not just on this project, but it affects all of our cities. It affects the project is excluded by federal law. Exactly that. And I shared with you my comments that I made to both Federal Highway Administration and to Caltrans headquarters. And we appreciated being revisited. I've asked the Caltrans District Director, Diana, to set up a meeting with the statewide director who came from another state and understands how other states choose not to do this work. Caltrans chooses to do this work. And in my opinion, it is not a correct use of federal funds doing work that is not required under federal law.
So thank you for that clarification, Aaron. Aaron's correct. He has brought this up on multiple occasions and expressed concerns in Kern County on these projects that are seemingly seem to be CEs and I'll say slam dunk projects for lack of a better term. And he's right. I think this is an issue, unfortunately, that I personally can't address, and it seems like it's a conversation that's got to be elevated by my director and having conversations with headquarters environmental staff, because I know that my environmental reviewers kind of feels his hands are kind of tied because he's kind of obligated to basically comply with a checklist. I know that doesn't fix things for you, but this is a topic that Aaron has obviously daylighted with us, and we have had discussion internally. So I think the best thing I can probably give you right now, and I apologize, it's kind of like a work in progress. I apologize, I don't have a better answer for you at this particular time, but I understand the frustrations, and Aaron's articulated very clearly to us. So it is something that's been daylighted.
I appreciate that. I just wanted to clarify that it's not just Aaron's frustration, it's also, you know, our frustrations as elected officials that, you know, we see enough abuse of environmental laws, and it's frustrating to see Caltrans jump on board with that abuse.
Understood, and Aaron's made it clear it's not just his frustration, and he's speaking on behalf of his member agencies, and I'll be honest and I'll be transparent like I always promise to be, but we have these same internal disputes amongst Caltrans various teams internally. Maybe I shouldn't say that publicly, but I will. But understood. I understand where you're coming from, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Executive Director's report.
We have District 9.
Oh, I'm sorry. District 9 Caltrans report.
Hi there. Good evening, Chair and Council members. Just go over a few projects since Michael touched upon CTP. Thank you, Michael. Rosamond Mojave Rehabilitation Project is starting to ratchet up. As you know, may have known, there was a public meeting held on October 6th. Outreach has continued via multiple avenues, and they anticipate shoulder work beginning on November 3rd with some intermittent lane changes. And the plan is to switch the traffic to the northbound lanes around December 9th. Some other minor projects, but ones that you might have some delays going on, so I'll mention them. On 178 at Kelso Creek Valley Road to west of State Route 14. They're installing some new curve signs along the highway, so there's going to be traffic control with up to 20-minute delays through there. On 395 at Rand Railroad, they're doing a planing and repaving project at the crossing there, and so there's going to be some one-way traffic control area through there as well. In Tehachapi on State Route 202 at various intersections along Tucker Road, there will be some traffic lane and shoulder closures at times as they do some work at the signal heads through there for utility work. And about 40 to 60 minutes they're expecting at each signal head. And then on, there's a couple of bridge maintenance projects on State Route 58. One being north of Mojave near the 58 Mojave Barstow Highway exit, the other at the Mill Street overcrossing, and there will be some one-way traffic control and intermittent closures through those projects. That's all I have. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any member questions?
I have a comment, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay with you.
Certainly.
Danae, thank you for your work on issues that I brought up in Kern County and San Bernardino County. You may have seen that I forwarded your response to the base commander of Edwards Air Force Base. He got back to me earlier today directly, and he truly appreciates the effort of breaking out the discrepancies with the students. Thank you very much for your work.
I think somebody needs to mute their phone. I can hear background talking with your, what you were saying.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Any member statements? Seeing none, we will adjourn the TPPC meeting and begin the Kern COG meeting. Roll call. Wait. Oh, I forgot Aaron. Dang.
And board members, I just have a handful of items on this agenda that I wanted to bring your attention to. September 23rd, we had a meeting for the cargo project. That's a reminder involves Bakersfield, Chapter, Kern County, Caltrans, and High Speed Rail. Also had a follow-up meeting today with some of the engineers, and I've had several follow-up phone calls, and we are following it up with an in-person meeting on Monday with Chapter, Bakersfield, and Kern. We are starting to get some traction on that project, and as you know, the state funded a phase 2, which we haven't started yet. But we're starting to run on all 8 cylinders now, and we will accomplish our goal of getting all agencies, all 5 agencies on the same page by the time we're done. September 25th, we had an in-person meeting here in the boardroom with Caltrans director and her senior staff. City of Bakersfield and County of Kern also attended regarding State Route 46 project near Lost Hills. Successful meeting, and I'll add to that in a few minutes. That same day, September 25th, met with Kern County staff and City of Bakersfield staff regarding illegal dumping, and saying, well, what do I have to do with illegal dumping? As a reminder, this board funds debris and obstruction removal, which some people call litter, but we call it debris and litter in our contract. Debris and obstruction removal. But the focus of this meeting was to convert a road that is used very infrequently, less than 10 vehicles a day use the road, and it is a dead end, into a Class 1 bicycle path. A lot of people know the road as the old dump road. And we came up with a solution where City of Bakersfield will take the lead and apply for a TDA-free project when that call for projects opens up early in 2021. But it shows that multiple agencies can collaborate and use funds designated for, as an example, bicycle and pedestrian use to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and also potentially reduce the amount of illegal dumping. And I'll get back to the debris and obstruction removal in a minute on another item. On October 1st, I met with former Senator Dean Flores, who, as you know, is a member of the California Air Resources Board, who is required by state law to jointly meet with the CPC. I met with him to urge the CPC to fund a grant that we have for State Route 46. And he has made good progress. Those results will be out in November, and I will let the entire board know as soon as we know if we get that $10 million grant. On October 7th, Supervisor Scribner and I and several others met with Edwards Air Force Base Commander and several members of the staff to again talk about the longstanding project with the goal of connecting Cal City Boulevard to the north gate of Edwards Air Force Base. In my opinion, it was the most productive meeting we've had in well over 5 years that I've been involved with this project. And as I said earlier in this meeting, I've developed a little bit of a relationship with the base commander, and I'm confident that we will eventually cobble together enough funds from a variety of sources, including the Department of Defense, to make that project a reality. On October 8th, the Caltrans director, Diana Gomez, district director, and I met with the new CTC commissioner, Leanne Eager, regarding regarding our grant application for State Route 46. Again, we should know in November whether that's successful. And back to the debris and obstruction removal topic. On October 13th, I met with the Bakersfield City Manager, members of his staff, and Caltrans District Director Diana Gomez to talk about how we could do more to beautify the gateways to not only Kern County, but to the Bakersfield metropolitan area. So this is something that is not just, doesn't just apply to Bakersfield and the metro area, but applies to all of the debris and obstruction removal we do on countywide. That's why Caltrans was involved with this movement. So I may be coming back to you with next year's budget with the proposal to increase the amount of money we spend on litter pickup both in the metropolitan area and in the unincorporated areas. I will tell you now we have the capability to probably increase our spending in those areas by about 50%. But the limiting factor may be, and I will work to figure that out in the next few months, the number of homeless crews that we can put together, the ability of the homeless center to have vehicles and equipment to do what they need to do, and their ability to travel to outlying areas. One of the topics that did come up is would Kern COG be able to help out with that equipment? And my preliminary answer, which will obviously be subject to your approval, was yes. We have the ability to spend that money not just on paying paying the salaries, which is the minimum wage of those people, but to buy them equipment if they need a new trailer, as an example, or a new van. There are many other funding sources, and I will keep you up to date on the progress. But just a heads up that we may be asking for next year's budget to increase the funding, and we do absolutely have the money to do that. Subject to any of your questions, that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. O'Keefe? Hearing none, I will now adjourn the TPPC meeting and begin the Kern COG meeting. Same roll call and same public comments. And seeing no public comments and hearing none, I'll move to the consent agenda. Public comments, all items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by Kern COG staff and will be approved by one motion if no member of the council or public wishes to comment or ask questions. Comment or discussion if desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered in the listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the council concerning the item before action is taken. Any public comment? Seeing none, hearing none. Any member comments, or do we want to pull off anything from the consent agenda? Hearing none, can I have a motion? Crump will make a motion to approve.
Vallejo, second.
Roll call vote, please.
Crump,
Aye.
Steve Smith,
Yes.
Vallejo,
Aye.
Mike Mauer,
Aye.
Russell Pryor,
Yes.
Roberto Reyna,
Yes.
David Couch,
Yes.
Zach Tridman.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 4, status of the California Vanpool Authority CalVan. Ms. Matthews.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. The California Department of Transportation determined that the Kings County Area Public Transit Agency's Vanpool program should be replicated regionally as a means of addressing the non-traditional transportation needs of California residents. On October 21st of 2011, certain public entities entered into an agreement to form a joint powers authority known as the California Vanpool Authority, or CalVan. A section of the agreement had a provision that allowed other entities to join on a later date. Kern COG made a written request for inclusion as a member agency of CalVan on July 19, 2012, and the board of directors of CalVan voted unanimously to accept Kern COG as a member. In March 2020, CalVan released its fiscal year 2018-19 financial audit. After review of the financial report, that CalVan had a significant loss and did not have enough funds to pay its expenditures. During a technical advisory committee meeting, it was discovered that CalVan had received grant-funded vehicles, which they made a lease-back arrangement for $1 million. According to CalVan staff, this was necessary because funds were needed to pay the expenditures, and that this type of arrangement had been done in the past to generate additional funds to operate the program. At the April CalVan board meeting, the executive director of the Kings County Area Public Transit Agency spoke concerning the issues outlined above and was told by the board that this was the first time the board had been informed there was a deficit, and that prior and current executive directors of CalVan had mortgaged assets without board approval. CalVan's management made several bad financial decisions, including issuing over $1.6 million in debt for not approved by the board. The joint powers agreement states that the board shall not obligate the transit authority to expenditures of funds not appropriated by the legislative bodies of the member agencies or received directly from the state or federal government. Approximately 21%, or $2,838,000, annual budget associated with the system, resulting in rising rates that are more than twice the standard rates charged by the private sector. A member agency may withdraw from the transit authority by filing of withdrawal 180 days. They have to withdraw. It should be noted that if Kern COG elects to withdraw CalVan, the services to the riders in Kern County will continue uninterrupted as a result of our withdrawal. The requested action is either 1, continue as a member agency of the California Vanpool Authority, or number 2, direct staff to prepare written notice to the executive director advising the chairman to sign the letter. Thank you.
Thank you. Any member comments? Yes.
I guess I'm a little confused on one part. If we opt out, are we held responsible for the debt that was incurred by the CalVan? Well, I guess the director or whoever, did the loan. Hello?
Councilman Vallejo, we are not responsible for any of their debt. The reason why I'm bringing this to your attention is there may be a ask at a later date for us to assist with that debt. Councilmember Crump is Kern COG's representative on CalVan, and I believe he has some more information.
Yes, this was brought to our attention, and our understanding it wasn't a buyback, that there was a loan taken out by staff that wasn't brought to our attention until after the fact. And when it was brought to our attention, there were several entities that were not happy with it. And as was just said, one of the others is debating on leaving. And I was talking to Aaron about us, where we sat with it, what our responsibilities were, because I didn't want us to get caught with having to pay something later. And I wanted it brought before you guys so that we could make a decision together, not me keeping quiet and then someone yelling at me later. So that's what I have to say about it.
Okay.
I just wanted to comment that I think they provide a great service. And over the years, it's done good, and we've been a member since 2012. And I guess my feeling is, maybe we have the executive director come and explain, where they're at and where they're going, and kind of feel our way through it instead of immediately dropping out. But I'm open to other comments. Ms. Layhood.
Yes. My concern, though, was there was a mention about, the cost to the writers, and we're responsible to ensure that, the ridership doesn't have to pay an amount that it just kicks them out, because of the cost. And in this report, it indicated that, they may have to increase the rate. Now, where are we with that? If we say, well, we're going to stay in.
That's decided by that board, and so far there is no discussion of raising that rate.
Okay, because it was mentioned on this on the discussion section. So it was mentioned here, but it's never been mentioned by the board. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, over there they've sat there, they've done the rate. They once a year when they do the budget, they talk about what it is, and when they did the budget this last year, they didn't raise it, and they said they weren't going to look at raising it for the near future. It doesn't mean that next year's budget they won't raise it, but they didn't do it this year.
But considering the fact that they took action on this loan, and if they are in trouble in the budget, it looks to me like it's, kind of like a foregone conclusion that we'll have to do that.
Well, they had already taken the loan. They didn't tell us about it. We didn't find out about the loan until afterwards. So like I said, they did it behind our backs. And so, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it. It's just one of those things that we won't know until it comes that time. And they lost money the year before. Apparently, we lost money this year. That's what the loan was, to cover stuff up.
Mr. Chairman, if the consensus tonight is the board does not want to take any action, we would be glad to invite the executive director from Cal to come and tell us why we should stay or why we should leave, or explain in more detail what has transpired. So that certainly could be an option that the board takes if that's your desire.
Thank you. Any other member comments on this plan?
This is Raina. I have a question. What benefit do we gain by being part of this board? The organization Calvin lost $1 million during this last fiscal year, 2019, 2020. And it appears that they're operating without regard to their board. And so what benefit would we gain by being part of that board, if anything, or what benefit would our residents gain by us being there when we don't count with them, when they're not addressing issues with the board members?
I agree.
Well, I agree with Chair Smith that they do have a good service, but my concerns are what you just said about them ignoring the board. They did have a group that sat there, went over the finances. They're trying to do something about it. I still have the concerns with them ignoring the board, so I'm not sure how that's going to play out.
Yeah, and apparently they also, the services they provide are much more expensive than they would otherwise cost if you use somebody else. So I'm not sure what the benefit is to the residents or to us being there. But I'll leave it up to the rest of you to decide. I'll go with what the majority decides.
Could you explain that comment, how they're much more expensive than private?
The services that they provide, I read somewhere on the report, and I can't find it now that I'm looking at it. I should have highlighted it. That the cost to the users is much more expensive. Hello?
You're right. It is in there. I'm looking for it too.
To explain where I got the information from, it was from primarily from a letter that the lady from the transit authority from Kings County had written, and she had researched all of this, and so it came from her letter.
Let me add on to that, Ms. Napier. So there are private companies that provide almost identical service, specifically in eastern Kern County. These Enterprise or their replacement, I'm not sure what the name of it, operates Calvin. So Calvin is a public agency, and they compete directly with private companies who are able to do this in some cases cheaper, but not all cases, but are able to do it and make a profit. And I've shared with some of you, maybe this is a case where the private sector can do that better, and if the public agency that's doing it cannot do it and taking enough money to cover their costs, maybe it's time that we leave. That's why I'm bringing it to hear what you think and to take direction.
I support. I'm sorry. I support. Having to move out. And what Raina was talking about, it's the third bullet under current issues and reads approximately 21%, and in dollars is $2,838,154 of the annual budget is associated with loan payments which are charged to the users of the system, resulting in rising rates that are more than twice the standard rates charged by the private sector. If it's going to head that way, I just can't see we're representing the people properly to allow us to stay in something that's going to end up this way, if it isn't yet.
I would add also that these are tax dollars. This is the people's money, and this agency is misusing the people's money, in my opinion.
And we have to speak for the people because
That's right.
We're here at COG and we have to stand up and speak for them because now we're made aware of what's happened.
Is it agendized tonight that we can take action to withdraw?
Yes, it was agendized to give you two choices, to either stay in or to direct staff to have a letter prepared to give the 180 days notice. Those were the two options, but if you want to table it for another meeting, we can do that as well.
Well, if it's agendized for us to take action, and if the whoever it is in the private sector is able to do it for less, and this group is acting the way they are, which is entirely inappropriate, then I would support withdrawing from the program.
Mr. Chairman, may I add a comment that may be helpful? Sure. I believe if the board votes to initiate separation, that if we change our mind during that 6-month process, we could, in effect, change our mind.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
In that case, can we make a motion at this time since there is action on the agenda?
If you move to initiate the withdrawal, I'll second it.
Okay. I make a motion to direct staff to prepare the written notice, especially after Aaron just mentioned that we have that 6-month period. If something comes up that tells us we could move out, but for now, I make the motion to have the written notice for that 180 days to withdraw.
Second.
Roll call. Aye.
Steve Smith,
Yes.
Saleha,
Aye.
Ballard, Mike Mauer,
Yes.
White,
Yep.
Gilberto Reyna,
Yes.
David Couch,
Yes.
Zach Scrivener.
Aye.
This is Phil in Tehachapi. Finally got a connection. I vote yes.
Thank you.
Good to hear you, Phil.
Thank you. I could hardly hear some of it, but I'm on.
Thank you. Executive Director's report.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman and board members. Just a few short items on this agenda. There's a TPPC meeting next week, the 21st and 22nd. I will attend that virtually. November 4th, there is a joint TPPC, CARB, and Housing and Community Development meeting scheduled for Los Angeles, but it will most likely be held online. As a reminder, I said a few minutes ago, that's the joint meetings that are now required under state law. That's why former Senator Dean Flores is able to still influence some transportation decisions. I also attended a directors meeting of COG directors throughout the state on September 29th. One of the hot issues that both Caltrans representatives talked about is Caltrans plans for 2050. Their plan for 2050 de-emphasizes investments in roads, which is something that we depend on here in the Central Valley and Eastern Kern. We're not likely to be able to survive with just bicycles and walking and transit only in areas where there are no alternatives. So we have commented on our displeasure with Caltrans' attitude that they are done investing in the state highway system. To use their words, the state highway system is mature and it's time to shift investments to other areas. And we certainly disagree with that. State Highway 46 is a great example. State Highway 46 is incomplete. There are still people dying on that highway literally every year, and it hasn't changed in certain portions for 60 plus years. I do not consider that a mature system, and I consider that an incomplete system. In your folder tonight, timeline covering October, November, and December. Schedule of task persons covering September. And for those of you that are interested, there are more and more roundabouts popping up throughout Caltrans. A economic and safety analysis of putting some very snow state. Subject to any of your questions, I conclude my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions?